Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to look at another history tea time with Lindsay holiday. And this time we're looking specifically at the British queens. We're not talking about the queen consorts. These women were technically queens in their own right. So we start off with Matilda. She was early on. How she became queen was, and she was very tumultuous. Probably a bad word for that. There was a lot of war going on with her. She did not hold the throne very long, but she was married off to the Holy Roman Empire. She was sent there when she was like 8. She married him at 11. He was in his 20s. He died when she was in her 20s, and they had no kids. So she could either become a nun or remarry. She remarried, and then her brother, for whatever reason, got himself killed in a shipwreck. So she became queen. But the British weren't entirely happy about this. So they eventually got rid of her, replaced her with her cousin, Stephen, who eventually lost his own son and then made her son his heir. So that was pretty much what happened with Matilda. The next time is the more common, and another very, very short, which is debatable, was Lady Jane Grey. So this is King Henry VIII, whole history, multiple wives. But his son Edward, who was very, very sickly, nobody knows exactly why he died or how he died. Could have been a number of reasons. Some people say it was tuberculosis. Could have been anything. He died at 18, but he was Protestant like his father. And so he decided to place his cousin, Lady Jane Grey, on the throne. Basically, he named her as his heir. They didn't get married, she was his heir. That didn't work. The people didn't take care of that. Mary and Elizabeth came waltzing in, and she was imprisoned, and Mary eventually had her beheaded. So then you have, of course, Mary the First of England, also known as Bloody Mary, the very Catholic, very pissed off Bloody Mary, who was very pissed off. Married to King Philip of Spain. She never had any kids. She had so many issues. She was in love with him. He was not in love with her. She was not married until later in life. She was very much of an old maid. Eventually died, but she killed a lot of the Protestants and was a little crazy. But then, of course, you have Queen Elizabeth I, who, again, she had a very, very long reign. She was a halfway decent queen. Again, she became queen because she was, basically Mary had no kids. So there was literally nobody else. And eventually she passed this on to her son, her third cousin. I'm going through the history here. No, she was, Queen Elizabeth's first cousin was King James I's grandfather. So, again, he was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, who Elizabeth, again, had beheaded, but he had nothing to do with his mother. And then, so he was king, passed it on to his son Charles, who got his head cut off, who I'll be covering the Irish history, which touches on this later. But they bring back Charles II, who passes the made his brother James II, who was Catholic, his heir. Now remember, history-wise, going on here, you had Oliver Cromwell. The country, Great Britain was pretty Protestant at this time, so Catholic king, problem. They kind of calmed down when he made his Protestant daughter Mary and her sister Anne, who were both married to German princes and were Protestant, his heirs. His wife died, he remarried, had a son, Catholic. The people freaked out. He ran away to Ireland, and they brought in William the Orange, who was his daughter, James II's daughter's husband. And William and Mary ran. So she was queen. She mostly ran the country by herself because her husband had no interest. He went back to Germany until she died. And then he didn't really have much of a choice because he had a kingdom to run. So she was the next queen. obviously very legitimate, pretty uneventful. She had no children. So she basically, after she died, and then her husband, William, they passed it on to her sister, Anne. Anne had no living children. She had sad life. So her life kind of, it sucked. So, and then how do we get the next queen is Victoria. Now, how do we get to Victoria? That's confusing. So, Protestants, Catholics are banned from running the country. As far as I know, still very, very true to this day. They have not changed their minds. But, so they go back up the line, back to James the First, Anne's grandfather, to her great aunt, down to the great aunt's daughter, Sophia, and to her son, George. So this is how you get the current line. George, and you went through them, through George the First, George the Second, George the Third, and then I think Frederick. Then you had basically George the Third's children did not have good luck with life or children. So George the Third's granddaughter, Victoria, was the next queen. Very, very well known. Had 9 kids. Lots of incest going on there. Possibly caused a world war. And was, issues going into with the hemophilia problems. Lived a very, very long time. Most of it is mourning. Was very much in love with her husband, considering, 9 kids. Though apparently she really hated being pregnant. You think she knew how the heck that happened by then. She knew how the heck that happened. She just apparently was very, very lusting after her husband. And then from her, you go down the line. You have her son, his son, and issues. And then we move on to the next issues, where you have, the whole, I'm going to marry a Catholic wife to divorce a American. And the British public are like, no. So, passed on to his brother, and then his niece, Queen Elizabeth, who at the time of this video was shot, was still queen. So, and again, she had a very, very long reign that ended very relatively recently. I'm filming this in December of 2022, so she died last month, I think. So the Queen Elizabeth II was greatly, probably more beloved than any monarch in modern history. Loved around the world. We will see what happens with Charles. His coronation has not quite happened yet. And we are not likely to have a queen anytime in the near future, unless Prince George, William's oldest son, decides to kind of go the way of his uncle or get kind of pissed off and decide, nope, I'm going to pass it on to my sister Charlotte. But unlikely. So hopefully he has a decent upbringing, it seems to be. But that is the gist of this video. So this covers these specific ruling queens of British history. It's about I skimmed through it. About 23-minute video. Yeah. So it's not that long. It's a good introduction to a good chunk of British history. If you're looking at women's history, this is a good thing to look at when you're homeschooling. Again, this is a good jumping off place to go through. So I always never consider this a huge source. It's a good jumping off place to go through. So if you're looking at different periods of women's history, again, this covers a wide chunk because it's covering the queens of England, of which there were not that many. And Lady Jane Grey is iffy because she never really did anything. She was mostly controlled. And I think before Mary and Elizabeth showed up with a lot of the British people and very royal, she ruled maybe a week or 2. Yeah, it wasn't very long. Probably long enough for Elizabeth and Mary to gather her people, gather her sister, which is basically back me up or you die kind of situation here. So very much it is. Poor Elizabeth, her life was not fun when she was young. Mom got her head cut off. Dad pretty much disowned her. was nearly raped by her stepmother's second husband, and her sister constantly was planning, and people were constantly trying to tell her older sister to have people kill her. And yes, she spent time in the Tower of London. And then of course you jump all the way to Mary the Second, and then her sister Anne, and then we get the massive long reigns of both Victoria and then Queen Elizabeth II. So, big chunk of history here, but is a good to look at. Again, it's not a very long video. It's only about 23 minutes. As I've done many Lindsay Holiday videos, I enjoy her. She's a good at doing introductions and overviews of various history points. So that is really the end of this video. I hope you enjoy it. If you like this channel, be sure to like and subscribe. I do cover a lot of books. This is balancing off my Princess Diaries, which is the reason I'm covering these. And I don't want to go into the Disney princesses because each one of those covers a whole kettle of worms on their own. I have already done Cinderella. If you want to check out those videos, I covered both the French version, the German version books, some different renditions. Film-wise, I covered both Disney Cinderellas, Ever After, and then the musicals. I am going to add to that. Unbeknownst, and I mentioned this in those videos, that Julie Andrews did one of the Roger and the Hammersteins, and I spent the money and bought it for myself for Christmas because I love Julie Andrews and I've never seen it, so I will probably review it maybe later. It may have I may shoot it now at some point. I may shoot it later this year. We'll see, but I will definitely add that to my reviews, and then I will cover some of those others. If you're interested in Disney princess reviews, I actually have covered the last one that was done in ink. Yeah, I'm on here. Sorry about that. The Frog Princess, or the Princess and the Frog, whatever they called it. And then I have covered Moana. That's coming out this year. Moana's coming out this year. The Princess and the Frog was last year. So, because African American films is hard. And yes, I do cover those. I do theme months as well as book series. Again, Princess Diaries. After the Princess Diaries, we're doing 2 Tamora Pierce series. I'm covering The Song of the Lioness and her Immortals Quartet. That is followed by the Guardians of Ga'Hoole. As of this shooting, those are already up. As I finish off the Princess Diaries, I'm also covering her Diaries of the Middle School, Notebooks of the Middle School Princess, which has to do with Mia Thermopolis' half-sister. So those are covered as well. And then I will be going back to May Cabot at the end of the year, as well as going back to Catherine Lasky at the very, very end of the year. So, along with a wide variety of other stuff. So, be sure to like and subscribe. Check out what I've got. Look forward to more. Thank you.